I normally talk us in on these things, but I'm not sure what there is to talk about. We're to have nothing to talk about with this movie. This movie is good night, everybody. We're not even going to start the episode. There's nothing to talk about. There's absolutely nothing to talk about.
Thanks, you've been great.
Yeah, this movie gives us absolutely nothing. I'm kidding. This movie was fucking insane.
It was, spoiler alert, I think it was 2/3 a good movie and 1/3 like really, it was pretty batshit for sure. But I have to say, and I don't want to go get ahead of ourselves, but for a good portion of it, I was actually very pleasantly surprised. But we can talk about that.
That HP. I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't just outright awful. I'm kidding. I joke. Only because this month we're supposed to be talking all about movies on Netflix that take a turn, as it were. And these are all horror movies. And yes, this is still the Kulturecast. I am still the host, to the chagrin of many, Chris Stachiw, and I am joined by one half of the hosting duo of the Taxi podcast, a little podcast you may have heard of called Wolf and Raisin. He's a friend of Father Malone's since longer than I've been alive.
Oh, that's sad. That's depressing. This is the old guy. Man, thank you for that intro.
Your friend of mine, HP.
Thank you. It's great to be here once again, Chris. Thanks for having me.
So before we talk about Eli, a film for Horrortober 8, the horrors of Netflix, because boy, this movie is a horror movie that is on Netflix. Both of those boxes have been checked technically. HP, tell the listeners a little bit about your shows that you work on and what people can find if they were to go and find the other things that you work on.
Oh, sure. So as billed, the advanced billing is true. I'm a co-host of the Wolf and Raisin Banachek podcast with Father Malone. And that's more of an offbeat. That's a video podcast, kind of a unique thing. And also I've been co-hosting the Goodnight, Mr. Walters, a Taxi podcast, as you mentioned. Episode 1 is available. Episode 2 is a bit stalled in the editing room, but hoping to get that out it would be nice if I got it out by mid-November on that. But yeah, so that's, I think, just between you, me, and the walls, I think probably episode 2 is probably got to get re-recorded, Chris. I think last time we spoke, I mentioned how unhappy I was with it. I just don't think it can be salvaged. And I think I've learned a little bit in these podcasts that you've had me be a part of. And I think I can do better. I think me and Father Malone can both do better. So, but anyway, as I said, Goodnight, Mr. Walters and Wolf and Raisin. That's where I can be found right now.
But you would say then that this kind of movie is not your raison d'etre, as they would say.
And that's a very fair statement. I mean, horror isn't really my favorite genre. Father Malone has forgotten more about horror and probably you than I'll ever know. So when I was invited to watch this movie and talk about it, I actually was kind of excited because, like I said, this isn't usually my favorite thing, but I jumped in with both feet. And as I said, I was actually, for the most part, I was pleasantly surprised. You wouldn't expect too much from a Netflix movie, but yeah, it was an interesting experience. It was very different from what I expected.
So what is the movie that HB is talking about in such hushed tones? Well, if you clicked on this episode, you would know. We're talking about 2019's Eli.
Hey, I'm Haley. I live down the road.
I'm Eli.
They say you're what, like allergic to the world, right?
I guess you could say that.
We looked everywhere for a doctor to help you.
You're gonna get better.
Promise?
Promise.
Hello, Eli. I'm Dr. Horn.
Hello.
I hope you don't think of this as a medical facility. To me, it's a home. And for now, it's your home.
Oh, it's been so long. Everything we hoped for is right here.
Shall we begin? What do you think is making you sick?
Lots of things. The air, water, dust.
Eli's gonna get worse before he gets better.
There's something in my room.
Bad dreams are a side effect. It's perfectly normal.
I don't mean to freak you out, but this place gives me the creeps.
I think she's making me sicker.
It's the medication.
No, it's not the medication. Why do I feel worse?
Because it's working.
I think something bad is happening. To leave.
Is his life in danger?
Why are you doing this?
You are sicker than you realize.
Get away from me! I'm not sick! Let me out! Let me out!
You're gonna get better.
Promise?
So the film is directed by Ciarán Foy. It is based on a story by David Churchillo, and then it's based on a screenplay by the same guy, Ian Goldberg and Richard Nanning, and it stars Kelly Reilly, Sadie Sink, Lili Taylor, Max Martini, and Charlie Shotwell as the titular Eli, a boy suffering from a rare autoimmune disease. Yes. So like HP already mentioned, we are going to be talking spoilers, and that's important because this movie, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, has more twist to it than a goddamn pretzel. Holy fucking shit. This is the twistiest movie this month. I just want to get this out of the way now. And that's should be saying something. I hope this surprises you. HP. This is the most twist-filled movie this month. And I've seen every movie this month so far has had multiple twists. This one just feels like the last 15 minutes are all about twists. But all that out of the way, before we talk spoilers, is this worth checking out? Yes or no?
Well,
it's free
I guess
if you have Netflix.
No. Here's the thing.
This is a time usage thing at this point. Do you want to spend 90? Would you suggest someone spends 98 minutes watching this movie?
I actually, as surprised as I am to say this, having gone into it with very low expectations, I do think it's worthy of spending an hour and a half watching it. Like I said, if you can deal with, like you said, the last 15 minutes is where it really, really goes off the rails. But for the most part, it's shot really, really well. The effects are really, really good for something that was really dumped to Netflix. It was a Paramount movie, and I believe they didn't know how to market it, so they just basically sold it off to Netflix. But if you go in with low expectations, not knowing anything about the story itself or any spoilers, of course, I think you could really have a good time with it. It's like I said, it's shot well. The effects are really good. There's some decent sort of jump scares. The acting, the boy who plays Eli is very good. Lili Taylor is like a treasure. I think she's fabulous in this. She doesn't have a lot to do, but she is very, very good. She lends like an air of gravitas to her part. And, the music actually is very, very good also. I was surprised to see that Bear McCreary was the composer.
I think he must be on fucking retainer at Netflix or something at this point. I've seen him.
Seriously.
That's what it feels like, because I feel like I've seen him now on multiple things recently for Netflix and just like horror stuff out the wazoo. He did the music for Cloverfield Paradox, Cloverfield Lane. He did the music for The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. That must be where I've seen his name so many times recently, is just
Absolutely.
all over the Lord of the Rings show. But Bear McCreary, man, just like even since 2019, his talk has increased exponentially.
It's incredible. I don't know how he has the time, because if you look at his filmography, like you said, there's a million entries now. He does video games. There's the God of War video game that's coming out. Last of Us. It's amazing, and it's really quality work. The only caveat I have for this movie is it may be a little bit over the top, because from the very first frame, the music is really kind of cluing you in that you're in for a spooky time. Like, not all is what it seems. Nothing is as it appears. Maybe a little over the top, but it's quality. I mean, like I said, I couldn't find fault in the acting, in the direction, in the music. The story is, that's a big part of a movie, but the story, like I said, and I don't have a solution for how they could have better ended the movie, I guess, but it was a little too over the top for me. It seems like you're on the similar bent of thinking that it was maybe a little too crazy at the end.
So I had never seen it either. This movie came suggested by Mark Begley. So all I knew from any of the movies this month were they were all going to take a turn at some point. And yeah, this movie, I think, takes kind of multiple turns. It kind of starts turning in on itself like a snake there right at the end. It's like you said, I think it kind of at the end of the movie, if you're on board with it, the twist is going to really land. And if you're not on board with it, or if you're just like tolerating or this movie's all right, it's going to be like, oh, okay, like really, that's where we're going with this. So yeah, I don't know, like the twist at the end of the movie, quote, recontextualizes the whole film, unquote, but not in a way that I really care, if that makes sense, where it's like, okay, well, that makes sense then, but all right, it's like makes sense, but at the same time, like you said, I think it's okay, but I don't know how motivated I am to rewatch it. So, that being said, everybody's good in it. I think anymore, like it's well made. Yeah, like it's a Paramount movie, like anymore, like in a lot of ways, like looks nice, almost feels like if this is on fucking Netflix and Paramount was going to release this and they decided not to, like, I hope it looks good. Right.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like it does. You know what it doesn't look like? It doesn't look like a Netflix horror movie. It actually feels like a real movie. And like a lot of the horror movies that I watched this month that are Netflix movies, like Woman in the Window and The Perfection, have felt both very much like this is a Netflix movie. This feels like a real movie, like an actual movie you would have paid to go see in 2019. And I actually understand why. The way this movie ends, I completely understand why they didn't release this movie in theaters, primarily because I feel like a lot of the audience would have been like, wasn't this just Brightburn? Didn't they see this like a year ago?
And I'm glad to hear you say that, because that was the connection that I kept like echoing my mind. I'm like, it's very, very reminiscent of Brightburn, because it's the same idea of this kid that is, you think there's an evil that ends up kind of lashing out at the end, and it all's revealed, and you realize that, it's the recontextualization is a little bit hard to swallow to some degree. And
what, with this or Brightburn?
Well, with this primarily, Brightburn, I think
Brightburn is. I don't want to spoil that movie too much, because that movie is, I think, the better movie of these two.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
They're trafficking in the same thing. I just don't think that. I think that movie sets the expectation. Like, even if you don't know what that movie is, I think you know what you're going to see when you go and see it. With this, it's like, no, this is like actually something else entirely, which almost feels a little unfair. But the way that they do it in this movie, it's a little goddamn cutesy. It's like, oh, and it was okay. Can we just talk about the fucking twist? The kid is the devil. The kid's the half devil. He's the
spawn of Satan. Yeah. The thing of it is, like, and I hate to bring up, like, I think with movies like this, where it sets up the central mystery, where you know right off the bat that it's not going to be as simple as this kid has this autoimmune disorder and they're going to try to cure him. Like, you're already, as a viewer, you're already like, your antenna is up looking for the twist, right? Because that's the sixth sense, right? That's going back even further than that. So my kind of antenna was already up. There is so much foreshadowing of where it's going to go, and I took note of all of this. Like, there's a ton of references to the Bible and to the soul. They talk about praying, and there's prayer at the dinner table, and the who you think is a scientist but is really a nun says isolation is good for the soul. At one point, it's clear, like, there is no doubt in my mind. Like, I know they were trying to create. I think one of the problems with the movie for me is they're trying to create this idea that you don't know if it's all in his mind, if it's the medication, if it's the treatment, but it's pretty clear from jump that this is not in his mind, because he's seeing like this girl Hailey outside of his window, and I think if I have any problem with the acting, funny enough, it's with Sadie Sink. It may not be.
She's awful. It's like she knows. What's awful is she's a character in a movie with the twist where that character knows that the other characters don't know the twist yet and is somehow cognizant of that. And almost like the character is almost cognizant that they're in a movie is what it feels like. Yeah. That's in a lot of ways, like it's not, I'm not saying that they actually break the fourth wall, but they toe the line of how omniscient or how omnipresent this character may or may not be.
She comes very close to breaking the fourth, because every line she delivers, she has this like half smile that is so insincere and so clearly not, she's hiding something. And like, to me, like, so she's trying to convince him that, you know, all these people were killed and it's not what you think it is, the treatments or whatever. So, but I already know she's as unreliable, you know, a character as anybody. So I'm already thinking like, okay, she's trying to set him up for something really bad and sinister. Like, so yeah, her thing, like that character was, whether it was the way it was written or I think it was the way she acted it, because like I said, there's always this kind of half smirk, like I'm kind of pushing buttons here and I'm pushing him to where I want him to go. It was just clear to me that, you know, it wasn't going to be, you know, there was going to be some grand twist that she was all a part of, and it wasn't all in his head. That was just my impression of it.
And you know, that like that being a twist that needs like answering the is it or isn't it in his head. I like you said, like the fact that this movie actually answers that, like it's kind of like it's missing the point in a lot of ways. Like that's not a twist worth talking about anymore. Like in these kinds of horror movies, I really am sick of this, like, is it all real or is it in the character's head? Like I personally, as someone who watches a fair amount of horror movies and this is like genre of stuff, it doesn't do anything for me where it's like, is it real or is it in their head? Because I think at this point I've seen better movies do it better. And anytime anyone else does it like this, it just feels like, so it can be a twist plot point, like a plot point we're getting hung up on when there's a twist.
Right. In some ways, it might have actually been a more interesting movie if they had been able to convey the idea that maybe it was all in his head. Right. There's no like gray area. Like no. It escalates almost to an operatic degree. And it is at the end. I mean, like it's the finale, let's call it, in the sort of operating theater is like so like batshit insane.
I know.
And the effects are really like, as I'm watching it, like so the effect, like I said, the effects were really good. There's some neat jump scares. There's parts where like at one point there are these ghosts that are kind of dragging him through the hospital or whatever you want to call it, the mansion. And it's so well conveyed. He looks in the mirror, he sees them, then he looks back and there's nobody carrying him around. Like I was like, that's really impressive for, like I said, a movie that's ostensibly a Netflix kind of, you know, movie that is free and that, you know, it didn't really have a chance in the theater. There's some interesting jump scares where he looks in the mirror and he sees the ghost and then he wipes the mirror and it's gone. Like I wasn't expecting the quality to be such a high degree, but yeah, I do think because a movie like this, we're so conditioned to thinking ahead and racing ahead and going, what is the twist here? Is it that, you know, his parents are criminals, or is there some weird thing at the hospital? Is he got some serious contagion that they're, you know, you don't know. I never expected it to go to the degree it did, but there's so much in retrospect foreshadowing that kind of leads you into, I mean, they're driving away. So at the beginning, they're at this motel and it's clear that the impression is that they've spent all their money trying to get treatments for this boy and nothing has worked. So like they're leaving this motel.
Still under the impression he's like a bubble boy.
He's a boy in the bubble, right? He's like, yeah, exactly. And they're leaving the motel, and like as they're driving away, there's a billboard that has like a biblical proverb on it as they drive away. And I'm like, you're really hitting us over the head, you know, right from the beginning with this subliminal idea that, you know, religion and the Bible is going to figure into this. And I guess it's because I was looking very hard for the signs that this was going to be not what I expected. But maybe if somebody's a more casual observer, they wouldn't hit miss a lot of these things, but I feel like they really hit you over the head with it quite a bit. And there are certainly, I mean, I don't know if you want to get into things like plot holes, things that I thought were like just out and out, like they dropped the ball. They could have made this so much better. I don't know if you want to get into that now or if you want to wait a little bit.
I was gonna say the other thing about this movie that I have an issue with, at least from just the basic storytelling perspective, is it almost it's this pairing of like the hyper technology and the like wood clad aesthetic, and that feels like another way that they like baited. A lot of this feels like a baiting operation, right? They bait you into this, and they bait you into your expectations of this kid has some sort of who knows what. They never really say, which I think is kind of obviously, like you said, one of the other things that should be immediately suspect is they really don't say. And they don't even, again, there's even a impropriety between the mother and the father regarding who knows what in that relationship. So this idea that there's this like super high-tech building built on top of these catacombs it's just, I don't know. I always have a hard time with it, because whenever you have the dichotomy between the two, it's, like you said, like the expectations are with this high-tech facility that it's going to be a disease or something kind of more technology driven, possibly, that they're trying to explain with technology and change and fix with technology. But ostensibly, that's not even real. Like, how far does the charade go? They're not doctors. They're just nuns. And they have this giant facility for what? So that they can feed kids holy water and like inject them with holy water? Like, it makes, once they start revealing what the twist is, the movie starts to like fall under the weight of its own insane high concept premise. Because there's a moment in this movie where, again, there's a moment up until there isn't, where you're like, okay, what is this? What is this kid suffering from? And it turns out, he's a demon. His dad is Satan. His mom made a deal with the devil to have him. The devil is a liar and said that he would be not like the devil, but he is like the devil. And then all the other kids that were there were half-breed demon children, and they died because they're not actually scientists. They're nuns, and they don't actually solve anything. They are just trying to kill the kids.
And just you reading out loud makes it seem so very absurd and ridiculous. But everything you're saying is factually true in the movie, where like you're saying, like, they drive up to this supposedly high-tech facility, and it's this like Gothic mansion. It's always shrouded in fog. So again, you're thinking to yourself, like, this isn't what it seems here. Like, and it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's only staffed by 3 very sketchy-looking women
what I don't understand about this movie is, again, it's ostensibly set in modern times, correct? I think we both agree, like, this is set in 2019, set pre-pandemic times of 2019. But then they go to a house that seems to be out of time, and that like feels unfair. Right. And in a lot of ways, it also seems like, this is such an odd reference to make, but it also kind of seems like that they just went to the house from X-Men and shot there.
The Xavier Mansion.
Does it not look like it?
It did.
The entryway looks the same.
You made a really good point, which is, like, once the truth is kind of unraveled, like, the movie really does kind of collapse under the weight of its own absurdities, because what you find out they've been doing is, so there's a lot of buildup to this treatment that this boy has to undergo, because if at that point he has some unspecified environmental allergy, like he can't be out, like he goes outdoors and he just breaks out, like his skin starts to turn red and almost like burn, and he can't breathe. So they bring him in for these treatments, and they're told that these treatments are going to be very painful and it's going to be hard for him to get through it, but he'll get through it or whatever. But really what you find out later, just the fact that they're trying to perform gene therapy on a demon, trying to cure him,
Dude, right? It's actual fucking insanity. To hear you say that, I hadn't even thought about that. I hadn't even thought about them doing gene replace, because that's the thing. Are they fucking scientists? Because they're doing gene therapy, supposedly. So are they scientists? Because like I said, they're nuns, but they're scientists, yeah? You're reading it as they're scientists. I thought they were just nuns and it was just a whole bunch of hokum. But I guess you could make the case that like they're drilling into his fucking head and they're like bone marrowing. They're actually trying to treat. This is like, what if in The Exorcist, those doctors were actually trying to cure her because they thought they could cure an exorcism, like
it's all very
demonic possession.
It doesn't, because she says at the end, like, because he yells at them after the cat's out of the bag and he's, trying to understand what's been happening. She says that they were injecting him with holy water and they were trying to perform like stem cell like replacement on his bone marrow, but like he was too old. Like he was too old and too strong, which to me begged another question, which is also, so he says in the movie that he's been sick for about 4 years, right? But I guess my question is, like, what were they doing for those 4 years? Because the mother and father both know and understand who he is and what he is, but they've created this, fantasy that he is sick and he can't go outside. None of that is really that well explained. Like how do they know? Like, and the fact that you don't understand even now, like when he goes outside and he has these allergic reactions, like what is actually happening there? Because it's all a lie. Like, what did they just like implant this suggestion in his mind that was so strong that he had these fits when he went outside? I don't get either. Maybe you can understand.
I don't know. Again, there's the problem with this movie is as we sit here and almost like unpacking the twist of the movie and the ramifications, the more the worse or I guess a better way of putting it is like the bigger the twist is and the more kind of deep rooted is, because they've set up so much stuff that is tied into it. At the end of the movie, they're guaranteed to have forgotten something, is what it feels like, or not really worried about how something interacted with something else. Yeah. Again, so the third treatment, they're gonna kill him. That's what they're doing. There's no treatment. It's just, he's on the table. We're going to kill him. We'll save his immortal soul, because the kid didn't want to be possessed, because he's not the actual kid anymore. Or is he? Because again, like he's not possessed by a demon, because he's like the Antichrist. Is he not?
He is, which
half breed. Like he's the is this not the definition of what the Antichrist is?
Well, and Reilly is also the devil's daughter, because she says like, "Oh, my father gets around," or whatever. So the idea is that these other 3 children that have been killed at the hands of this weird facility, I guess you're supposed to think those must have also been like demon halflings, but he has this crazy like explosion of violence and this attack. He basically kills everybody in the facility except for his mother, and it's implied at the end like they're driving away and the mother's kind of freaking out because, well, why wouldn't you? You're driving, the devil spawn in this car, God knows where, but he kind of calms her down with the same like routine that she would use on him when he got freaked out. So I guess it is implied that he's still the same boy, but now he understands who and what he is. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving it too much credit.
I think you're right. I don't think he's possessed.
No, because when he's, when he like kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, when he kind of hulks out, when he lets the demon part of him kind of manifest, that's when he becomes all blotchy. His eyes get all crazy and red. And, to me, he looks just like the kid from Brightburn. That's where it really solidified for me. But then as he's walking out of the facility, leaving just flames and death in his trail behind him, he, like, you can see that he turns back into that child. Like he's no longer, like he goes outside, he's no longer like possessed in the moment. But I don't know. I'm not really sure where the movie goes from there. Like what are we supposed to believe happens after that? I don't know.
Well, that's similarly to Brightburn. That's the question I asked at the end of that movie. It's like, what end did you tell this story? So now, like, it's been 3 years. There has been no talk of a sequel to this movie. No, I mean, this movie, like you mentioned, effectively got dumped on Netflix. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, that's the question at the end. It's like, what were the stakes here? Because I didn't understand what the world outside was. The world outside seemed normal, but there were some weird shots that would lead me to believe maybe it wasn't as normal as people were. See, again, like we mentioned, this house is so kind of removed out in the middle of nowhere that this could be set at any time, any place, whenever. And you could essentially get away with. So I don't even know what the stakes of this fucking movie are. Like this kid's life are the stakes, I guess. They don't make it clear because they can't tell us what the stakes are. That's the problem with this movie, is a lot of these twist-driven movies, like you can't tell us what the stakes are because you've spent 3/4 of the movie telling us what they were, and then you have to change them right at the end of the movie. And you have to do your best to explain it in a character-driven monologue scene that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Sixth Sense works perfectly, recontextualizes the movie, makes an amazing movie. That's the thing. The twist in The Sixth Sense doesn't matter at all. Like it doesn't matter to the movie. You know what I mean? Like the movie, you can rewatch it and it recontextualizes the scenes between Haley Joel Osment and Bruce Willis. Still a great movie, still an impactful movie. The twist just recontextualizes one relationship, but that's it. And there's very little cheating there. In this movie, the twist is trying to literally change what this movie's about. And then at the same time, replace it with something else entirely. And it does not do a very good job in replacing what we're led to believe this is with what it actually is. Because it has like 5 minutes to tell what that is.
Right.
5 minutes to be like, and here's what it is. All right, done. And it's like, no.
Well,
like you can't do that. And you can't do that because we are not going to be completely on board.
There is a kind of a throwaway line that implies, in my mind, it implies that he's the Antichrist, where I think it's Dr. Horn says, like, I know who you are, but I also know what you will do. Something to that effect. Like, I know what you will do in the future, which I guess you could read that as she knows that he will bring about, he is the Antichrist and he will bring about the end times or what have you, end of days. But again, that's, the movie never makes it, to your point, it never makes it clear what the real stakes are, because he's not the only one. It's not as if this is
other ones.
Right. 4 if you count Haley.
Right. Which would lead me to believe that there's more than that, just like running around, right?
Yeah. So I guess you could just make the case that just means that they're ridding the world of evil as a general concept, but it's not as if, like, they could have very easily they could have made the stakes more clear by saying, if we don't kill your boy, then he will bring about the apocalypse because he is the Antichrist. He is, fated, bring about the end of days. But they never say that. It's always like, we have to save his immortal soul, but they don't really, that's about as high as the stakes are at that point, where that's all the nuns are trying to really do at that point is save his soul. But I guess we're just supposed to, based on our general knowledge of Judeo-Christian lore, that he's going to the, I don't know. I guess the more I talk about it,
I'm with you, man. It's frustrating because if you like, the problem with this movie is the more you think about it, like it reminds me of Jordan Peele's Us. Like the more you think about it, the more the movie just starts to completely fall under the weight of its premise.
Falls apart.
Yeah, like, so if there are these 3, 4, 5 now demon kids, 2 alive, 3 dead, that are just roaming the world, so what? There must be a ton of them. And they've done clearly nothing. They're not doing anything more than just being pains in the ass, and they're nuisances to the people around them. You know what I mean? Like, he only kills those people because they were threatening him. I'm assuming he would go and do terrible things, sure, but Like, there are plenty of these kids out there that must not have been doing terrible things, or they are, and we just don't know about it. Movie can't make up its mind because movie doesn't want to tell us. You know, what the movie should have done was the moment he steps foot back outside after he's like fully realized his powers, that's when Armageddon happens. And that's when the world.
Yeah.
And it's like the whole, like, trying to stop him from getting out is why the mother and father both die, or she survives and has to be the, you know, sycophant of the Antichrist in Armageddon. But like, that's not what they say. They don't say anything.
Right. But that would have been, you're absolutely right. That would have been perfect. He walks out and like the skies turn to black, you know, planes start falling out of the sky. And you're like, okay, that's it. They were trying to prevent the apocalypse and they failed. And that's the end. You know what I mean? I would have been like, well, that, while there's still, you know, a lot to unpack with that ending, I would have said, well, that's more in service of the story. I think what they kind of did was they just kind of shrugged and said, well, he saved, his mom's with him and his half demon sister's with him. And that's it. We don't know where they're going to go, what they're going to do.
And it's not that I want more, or it's like the movie didn't give me enough. It's like it gave me too much of one thing. And then because the twist was so far towards, like, because the movie is front loaded 3/4 of the way, I really have a problem with how slowly this movie metered the twists out. It saved so many twists for the last 10 minutes of the movie. Whose allegiances are what, and who's actually what, and who is doing what is saved until it's all revealed essentially at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just mind-boggling to me because, yes, the movie up until that point is interesting, but the movie up until that point is also kind of rote and kind of just what you've seen before. Somebody in a haunted house seeing things and the other people don't believe him. Like, how many times have we seen that? That, like, that's the setup. That's the setup right there. Like, where do you go with that setup?
But could still, like I said, there are redeeming qualities to this movie. Like I said, it looks great. It's, if you're going to sit down and watch a free Netflix movie for an hour and a half, like, this is one that you're not going to feel cheated on as far as production values. I think it looks great. And I think, like I said, for, you know, look, is your dyed-in-the-wool horror fanatic going to love this movie? Probably not. I would argue that this isn't really for them. This is something that if you're bored one night, you want to catch a movie you haven't seen before, you're scrolling through Netflix. Oh, I know Sadie Sink. She's in Stranger Things.
Right.
I'll check it out. How bad could it be? You know, it's, you know, and you'd be pleasantly surprised by the production value that is in this movie. But again, like, you know, 2/3 of it is fine. It's you're right. It's not anything we haven't seen before a million times, but it's well made. You can do that. I mean, haunted house, scary ghost stories are proliferate because they can still be effective. We know where it goes, but if you're creative and you're inventive and you can shoot it well, then all the better. This was that movie for me, like I said, for about 2/3 of the way, even though I knew I could see that there was some, you know, wild craziness on the horizon. I just wasn't quite prepared for where it went. And it was, you know, look, I'm fine if you want to shoot for the fences and create a grand, like I said, operatic ending. This just didn't work for me. It raised more questions than answers. And I was left kind of with a shrug going, all right, I guess that's it. All right, whatever.
Well, and that's the thing about it. It feels almost like you know, all of these Netflix movies have shared something in common where it's like they do have a twist and there's this big twist ending. And it's like, I'm not so much driven by that. I'm not so much driven by that kind of content anymore. Do you know, like thrillers and twist driven content for me, it's just okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say I don't like movies with twists in them, but right now where I am at with this kind of narrative, like structure where you know that there's a twist at the end, 2/3 point of the movie, I think it's just an exhaustion thing where I'm just wondering, will someone do something different at some point where it's not just, oh, it's demons. Oh, you know, I like, that's the thing. Like, even the twist in this movie, when we find out what it is, it's just, I'm just trying to still figure out, like, who cares? Do you know? Like, it's just, it's hard because all the performances are good. Like you mentioned, Lili Taylor is fine. Sadie Sink is from another movie. Charlie Shotwell is doing the whole confused kid thing. And Kelly Reilly is all right.
Yeah, she's okay. I mean, I for me, she was kind of like a poor man's Annette O'Toole. Do you know Annette O'Toole? Right?
From It. You know, why is it so mean?
Right.
He doesn't like anybody talking about that project, but we'll bring it up anyways.
Sure. And the father was kind of like a poor man's Bryan Cranston. He was fine. Like, they don't really have to, you know, do much except, you know, they did what they had to do. They're, you know, it's one note. They're concerned for their kid. They get hysterical. They bicker a little bit. It was fine. You know, like I said, the acting was okay, except for Sadie Sink, who you're absolutely right. She was from another movie entirely. Like, if they're
fun movie, like maybe the movie that takes place after this movie is probably a lot of fun, where it's her probably, and them like running around and just blowing people up, because, you know, nothing gets my blood going like a dude's face just getting fucking exploded. It was, I mean, like I said, the end, like the actual like kills were actually kind of interesting. Like, I wasn't expecting, so he kind of lifts up all of these nuns / scientists, and as he's having this like shouting match with his mother, like, it's amazing how they do it. Like, he has them revolving around him upside down, like an upside down cross. Yeah. And they're just going around and around. I'm like, that's a really interesting effect. And then they all burst into flames when he has this outburst. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, that's really interesting. And like you said, the father, like, he kind of like points at him and his face kind of implodes or something, and he dies. But it all, that part of it all worked for me. Like, the actual like practical effects and how that's all seemed, it didn't seem as low budget as I was expecting from a Netflix movie, but obviously it wasn't, because it was a Paramount feature before that. But that's all. Like, if I'm like the casual viewer and I happen across this, that part of it's a pleasant surprise to me, because maybe up to that point I'm used to the usual low budget Netflix fare and not expecting too much. You might, if you come in expecting nothing, you will. I mean, it's I'm damning it with faint praise a bit, but you will. I am, but like I said, I came into it just knowing, because I looked up the synopsis and I'm like, all right, this sounds. I'm sure there's going to be a big twist. I'm sure it's all is not what it seems, and I'm also sure that it's probably going to look terrible. Like, it's going to be like shot in Toronto and it's going to look bad. That part of it was a huge pleasant surprise for me, that wow, this is an actual decent budget for what it. I mean, it's only really one location. You're talking about like 6 actors max. It's a COVID movie before COVID. Right. That's true. It was very tight and, you know, kind of compact as far as shooting locations and the number of actors. And that, like I said, that I'm sure that worked in the budget's favor, because you don't have to, like, you know, scout a bunch of locations and shoot everywhere. That part of it was kind of cool. But again, like, really felt like it is kind of comical that it takes so long to get to the point where you finally learn what the whole thing is about. And then they have to cram everything, all of this, like, you know, finale information into like 5 minutes, and then the movie's over. It's so quick at the end. Well, what's crazy is almost no dialogue throughout the movie suits the actual plot of the film. It's all told through like you mentioned, the kind of subliminal or the kind of like foreshadowing heavy stuff. But they don't talk about demons or the devil until the 70, 80 minute mark is what it feels like. I mean, no exaggeration here. And it's just unfortunate, because that movie is more interesting than the movie that preceded it. Like, the movie that it becomes is more interesting. Now it's like, okay, this kid is a devil kid. But at the same time, the movie doesn't even know what it wants to do with that, because what does him being a devil kid mean other than he's a half human, half demon? Like, it doesn't even mean anything. So I don't know. it's weird because, again, Netflix does kind of seem like in 2019, at least, it was kind of, pre-pandemic, it was like a dumping ground for stuff that the theaters didn't want to release. And I can see why with this movie, because on top of everything else, the way the movie ends, I feel like doesn't serve Western audiences, or at least Western audience expectations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think it does. Do you think
Doesn't
this
have
would
a happy ending, is what I'm saying.
No, but again, comparisons to Brightburn are so apt because that's not a movie that has a happy pappy ending either.
No.
But I think in the context of the story that they're telling, I think it's more shocking and more interesting to me because personally, I'm a comic book guy, and I liked the riff on like, what if Superman were an evil child when he came to Earth, right?
Right.
That's interesting, and I can like, that gives me context that I can understand the movie a little bit easier. This, like, I came in thinking, okay, I know haunted house movies. I know not everything is as it seems, but like I said, there's no way for me to prepare, or anybody for that matter, unless you're really, really watching for those cues. And I'm sure the filmmakers thought they were being clever in dropping so many, like, clues about religion and prayer and all this kind of stuff.
That's why I said the cutesy thing, where it was like, oh, and we're giving him holy water and medicinal religious herbs. Like, fuck off, movie. Like that. It's just it's just so cutesy. It's like we're injecting him with holy water. Like, but at the same time, they're trying to do a procedure, like an actual scientific thing, and you're just like, we're giving him holy water injections. Like, yes, but what does that do? Like on whose advisement are you doing this? Like, because again, we're being told that in this world, somebody believes they can cure being half human, half demon by gene therapy. So it's fucking bizarre because, like you said, Brightburn is a good movie because we know what it's going to be about. We know it's the movie advertised itself as bad Superman, the child version. Like, this is just like, you don't know what this is.
Well, the other thing that occurs to me is, we were talking about, are they nuns? Are they supposed to be scientists? But the thing that, again, it's about your radar kind of coming up. Like, I don't know too many, medical doctors that would perform the kind of procedures they are performing on this boy and not put him under general anesthesia like that. Like, as soon as they're like drilling into his head and like pulling marrow out of his arm and all this kind of stuff, like, wouldn't they, I think, I don't know, maybe that's part of what is driving the boy crazy, is he knows that they're not real doctors. But I'm watching this going like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I don't know. And maybe that's part of, but if you research like how to like exorcise demons, maybe the pain they're causing is part of the treatment. But that didn't make any sense to me either.
No,
It's
well,
weird.
and that's the thing. None of it makes sense once they reveal what the twist is. The twist dismantles this movie in such like in such an insane way. Yeah. Again, like, it's just everything about this movie has to be told through the lens of pre the twist and post the twist. Because like before the twist, it's they're scientists, they're treating him. Post the twist, it's like, were they ever scientists? Were they treating him? What were they doing? If they were doing something, is this like is this a thing that the church is approving of too? Like, again, it's like a lot of questions, because in The Exorcist, it's understood what's going on. And in this movie, again, I don't need that information, but the movie acts like that information should be understood by us, the audience. And it's just like, I'm just like, I don't think so. I don't think the movie has given me enough at the end to understand what it was going for ultimately. Because it feels like it was all driving towards the twist, and it didn't actually try to tell an interesting story.
I agree. And before we got on this call, I was trying to think of like how could the ending have been more satisfying? And maybe it's not for me because I'm not a screenwriter, and it's not my job to make a movie, improve a movie's ending because I don't like it. But I have to believe there's 100 different ways you could have made an interesting movie, or more interesting and more believable movie out of it's like it just seems like they were swinging for the fences. they were counting on the fact that this was an outrageous, like I said, an operatic ending, because it's crazy. But
yeah,
to your point, it raised so many more questions and answers about everything that had already taken place that I was left. It was unsatisfying because I'm left scratching my head saying, like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, how it didn't really land for me. And maybe some people it might. Maybe some people are willing to kind of suspend their disbelief in a different fashion. But for me, and clearly for you, it's just like, all right, and okay, that's fine. It just didn't really live up to some of like I said, more interesting things that I'd been seeing. But again, not to say this is a perfect movie. The 2/3 that I enjoyed were perfect, far from it. But there's worse ways to spend an hour and a half, or at least the hour and 10 minutes before the whole thing kind of went crazy at the end. That's my opinion.
Well, and I do agree with you. I mean, I think that the movie that it shows before the twist, before everything kind of hits the fan, Ciarán Foy has worked on his movie that he worked on before this one was Sinister 2. And he had also worked on a film called Citadel, which sounds pretty interesting. I was not a big fan of Sinister 2. I was more of a fan of Sinister 1. I think Sinister 2 was, I don't know, by the end of the first movie, I was like, I don't need to see anymore. Like, I get what this is. Like, what else do we need to say here? Effectively, the second movie said nothing more than the first one did. But again, I understood that the director understands the horror medium, the horror genre. And I think it shows in that first, like you said, the first 70 minutes of the movie are rather well made, rather tightly shot. The scares are pretty good. I think they're kind of all very similar in tone. I don't think because they're trying to convince you it's a haunted house ghost movie, they have to really lean on the expectations and the tropery of a haunted house ghost movie. I think almost to the film's detriment in a way, because they have to like give you things that you expect, like seeing, like, remember the part where he sees somebody in the reflection of the chair? Well, like, what was that? What was that? Like, again, like it's when you actually think about it after the fact, very little makes sense. But while you're watching it, I think all of those kind of little unsettling moments do kind of coalesce into something that's interesting, that clearly the director has a good wrangle on the kind of the nuts and bolts of good horror movies.
Yeah, it was, I think you said it really well. I think for the most part, the movie is unsettling. This isn't a movie, like I said, that you're like hardcore horror, the nut is going to lose their shit over. It's for the most part well crafted. There's some interesting. There's a few jump scares, like you said, but they're all pretty similar. But it's a haunted house. It feels unsettling. The music works really well with it, but again, it just the whole didn't really justify the sum of its parts, if you will. Like, there's a lot of interesting bits that you can take in isolation and say, wow, this was actually pretty good. The direction was pretty solid, and the music and the acting was for the most part, but it didn't really coalesce into a unified whole at the end that I could wholeheartedly recommend the movie. Like I said, my recommendation is reserved for people who it's a Friday night, you're bored, you've seen everything else you want to see on Netflix, and you come across this and it might be a pleasant surprise.
Well, and that is the other thing that, mentioned, the other thing that is a pleasant surprise for this movie and for a lot of movies that center on children actors is the main child actor is pretty good for a role that more often than not becomes precocious, obnoxious little child.
Yeah, I thought he was really, sometimes, like you said, movie roles like this can be sort of shrill. But I thought he was very, sympathetic. I think that's probably the best thing I can say about it is I bought him. I thought he was fine. He didn't take me out of the movie because he was either too, like sometimes like a child actor is a little too good for their own good, and that pulls you out of their performance and you go, oh, this is a little creepy. I thought he was totally fine. He balanced, all these sides of his personality. I thought I had no problem with his acting at all in the movie. I thought he and Lili Taylor were like the standouts in the cast. The mom was fine. She, but it's not a part that was that unique. We've seen the same kind of role in other movies, Brightburn, for example.
Right. It's a pretty thankless role.
Sure. And the father was fine. I thought it was a great scene where he's talking to the boy and he's reminiscing about, the last time they were outside with their dog. And I was, that's pretty good. I was actually I think interestingly, when I looked him up, first of all, his name is Max Martini, and I'm not sure how to feel about that name, but hey, good for him. That's, I'm not sure that's his birth name. But he's got some interesting, he's got a lot of some horror in his background. He was in the Purge TV series, which I did not watch, but he was fine. I didn't have a problem. The only person I had a problem with was Sadie Sink, which is sort of ironic considering she is like really the flavor of the year since the last season of Stranger Things, right? Everybody's talking about Sadie Sink. She's in The Whale, that movie with Brendan Fraser that's coming out. She's huge all of a sudden.
Yeah. Well, and in 2019, she would have been that's third season of Stranger Things. So the mall season. So yeah. That's height. Now we're really at the height of her visibility as an actress. But even then, like that, her having a bit part in this movie is surprising. But given what the bit part is, kind of makes sense. I think it might. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like that character just bugs the shit out of me in this movie.
Yeah,
it's just a bad character. Like, almost like that character exists to explain the movie to us when he leaves the house. It's like, hey, dummies, here's what happened. It's like, but like, I do get this point. To this point now, I understand. Like the movie, I don't know. Like the movie must also think that the audience is pretty stupid. The way that character acts at the end of the movie, just like, and here's what happened in the movie. It's like, yeah.
There are other ways that they could have sowed like the seeds of doubt in the boy's mind and Eli's mind than having him talk to a character who may or may not even be real. Like you're supposed to kind of, have this doubt in your mind as to whether it's just another figment. Again, I think if you're really going to, I already said this, but it kills me to think about it now in the context of the Haley character, is if you're going to create this idea that this all may be in the boy's mind, like then do it. Like, but it's so heavily pushed towards, this is clearly a supernatural situation. He has this sort of like, she really is sort of, for lack of a better word, she's impish, because it seems like her whole point in being there is to push him more towards the direction that, he's ultimately going to go in, which is turn on anybody and everybody in his way. But there's other ways. They could have had him, maybe exploring the hospital in greater detail earlier to kind of find these records and these files and these, sow the seeds of doubt in his mind that this isn't really a hospital. I don't know what's going on here and I better get away. Having her there and the way that she plays her part is just, it was bad. Like if I could point to something that is utterly and genuinely like bad, like I would cut this out if I could. It's that character and her playing that character. I'm sorry. It just like you said, she's there. She's purely a device to make him doubt what's happening. But in the balance of it, she makes you start the awareness that there's something really sinister and awful coming is only underscored by her and her performance, because there's nothing good and sweet about her and her attempts to help the child. She clearly has an agenda right from the beginning.
And she's playing like the version of her character from Stranger Things, but like hyper asshole version.
Yeah.
She is one of, she is probably the worst part of outside of the twist, just not having enough time to really have time, like not enough time to exist in the movie. Yeah. She really stands out as just it's just a strange choice. She is a strange choice to play that character, because normally she is so just kind of charming, and she's not even charming. Like like you said, it's so obvious that she's up to something, or that she's coercing him in a direction that she wants. It's like she says at the end of the movie, he's like, you were one of the stronger ones. And he was like, why couldn't you do anything? And she's like, you had to come to this on your own. It's like, well, you didn't do a very good job of that because you still interceded like 4 fucking times. And the moment I saw her on screen, I was like, she's the devil or something. About halfway through, I was like, she's the devil or something. Because the way they're shooting her too, I don't know. That for me was like the giveaway. Because I said it out loud when I was watching. I was like, she's the devil or something is what I said. And I didn't know, obviously, how that would factor into things, that he would actually be like demonically gifted. But that for me is like, feels like that's how they gave away the movie and brought the movie down, was just the twist, which also Sadie Sink's character plays directly into it. And it's just so shit eating at the end of the movie. Just dressed her. It's like, why are we supposed to care about this character? Like, you're doing that bitchy teen thing. And it's like you're not endearing us. Cause like the kid who plays Eli, like even at the end of it, like you're kind of like, all right, like he's the half demon, half human. So what? Like, I don't know. Well, like, what does that mean? Like,
sure. I mean, I still had empathy for him at the end.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, he's still a kid.
Yeah. Because he didn't ask for any of this. Right. This is all his mother's doing, because she says that she prayed to the wrong person for a child, and she was deceived. And that part I bought into, the fact that that was the thrust of his rage at the end, which was like, who am I, and what did you do to me? What did you make me? Why am I the way I am? Her whole thing, like, I think what you're supposed to believe as a viewer, I think they were trying to convey this idea that she's probably a figment of his imagination, at least at first, because he only ever sees her at night, when no one else is around. And she always seems to be there when he needs some crucial bit of information filled in for him. But again, there must be a dozen other ways to have a character. It could have been another patient at the hospital. It could have been any number of things. Like, it could have been like I don't know. It just bothered me that she was so kind of, like you said, like such an asshole from the very beginning, and kind of not mincing, but kind of like, all of this sort of like prancing around outside the window. Every line was delivered with kind of an arched eyebrow and a smirk.
I'm not going to call you Eli. I'm going to call you something else. Like, what do you don't say that to something? Like, it's so weird that it's clear that she's just like doing her own thing. Like, whatever. She's acting the way that, unbeknownst to us, she's acting the way that she is because she knows the twist of this fucking movie. And it's like, I don't like that, because it feels like the screenwriter just clucking its tongue at us. Like, ha ha ha. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care that much. Like, I don't care that much. And the movie really thinks I'm invested. Must think I'm super invested in this story. It's like, the movie didn't do enough to get me invested. It just didn't.
That's the irony of, like, one of the first things Eli says when he leaves the hospital to her is, you knew about this. Why didn't you tell me sooner? And I'm like, that's what the audience is saying. Why couldn't you have told him sooner? Like, why, like, allowing this whole charade to play out? Because you knew, like, what does it benefit? I know she says, like, well, we had to let you get there on your own. We had to prove how strong you were. But still in all, like, what would be lost if she goes to the window the first night and says, you're not who you think you are. This place is not what you think it is. Guess what? Buckle up, because you're the spawn of Satan and you've been lied to your whole life, and I can prove it. I don't, but she's, like I said, she's such an asshole in this. She's so smug about the whole thing. And she, like, I never get the sense, another actor maybe, or another performance might have conveyed some real compassion for Eli in the situation that he's in at that point, which is, geez, you have no idea what you're into. I want to help you as much as I can, but, this place is evil. You've really got to get out of there, da-da-da. But everything is like so forcefully mysterious and kind of, like I said, smug, and the worst. It is.
She knows the twist before we know it, and it's that informed nature of the character that's just, it sticks out. Because again, it just doesn't feel like she's part of this movie, and you find out why, because the movie that we've been watching has been a lie. But okay,
well, it's a little galling too to know that like she knew the whole score the whole time through it. As a viewer, unless it's played or written a certain way, that just feels like you wasted my time.
I agree. Like you said, why didn't she just tell him, like, you're the son of the devil? You could blow this whole building up. Because and they don't explain that, like, they've done anything for him to get his powers. It's made kind of clear that he's already getting his powers. That's why they're doing this, because his demonic powers are manifesting. And so they're like, we need to figure out how to fix this, because if we don't fix it now, he's going to be too gone. He is too gone because they do not fix it fast enough. But there's never like a sense where I get, his powers are somehow greater because of what they did in the movie. It's like, no, he was just like, and now that he knows the truth, he can like. That's the case. She could have just told him. She could have just been like, "Hey, you're the son of the devil. Let's go. Like, we're out of here."
Let's embrace your anger, embrace your power, and let's get the hell out of here.
Right.
But again, and it's another thing that the movie doesn't make clear. I mentioned this earlier, but like they've somehow convinced him. Like, I don't know why. Like, it's so important that the son of the devil can't be outside, like with out in the environment. Like, because like the whole point is you're supposed to believe that he has this environmental like autoimmune disorder. As a demon, how does that factor into his abilities as a demon? Why can't he be outside? Does that somehow make his powers manifest? That part I didn't get either. You know what I mean?
I think it must have been like fully a do thing where he's just like, or like Munchausen by proxy, where it's just like he gets it because they keep telling him that that's the case. Because otherwise what are they doing? Like actually injecting him with something allergic every time he goes out? It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, because even like when he's being menaced by those like punks at the beginning and he falls and he scrapes, like, remember there's a hole in his little moon suit.
Yeah.
And that immediately brings on an attack. Like you can see his complexion becomes mottled again and she's got to calm him down. That they never really explained how that supposed lie of being, allergic to the world was somehow suppressing or affected by his demonic, ability. That part, I was off scratching my head because it's like, well, that doesn't make sense, because he could just, at the end, he just goes outside and he's like, I'm okay.
Right.
There's no problem here.
And that's what's kind of sad is like, that's the basic failure of this movie, is it almost doesn't even care about the basic conceit anymore of its own film, which is this is a kid with some sort of allergic autoimmune disease where his body is attacking itself. And for whatever reason, when he goes outside, that happens. But when we find out the twist, they don't even explain what that means, which is fine. You don't have to, but you kind of do, because, it's like the biggest part of this is, why was he being shielded from the real world for the last 4 years? What does him being a demon actually mean? Apparently it means he can't go outside, but we don't know why that's the case, because that's not actually the case, clearly.
If he were a vampire, I would understand why he can't go outside in the daylight, because that would make sense. It's like a Near Dark. The Near Dark is probably one of the best vampire movies of all time, because they don't once you understand that these people are vampires, and I don't think they ever actually say the word vampire in the movie, but you get it. But I can't help but feel cheated a little bit as a viewer and I'm not asking for everything to be spoon-fed and explained to me, but like, this is such an integral part of this character and what he's going through, which is he can't go outside. He's got this problem. Well, but how do you explain that in the context of him being like demonic origin? Like, it doesn't, that part, like you said, I don't think they really cared enough. I think they were just hoping to take you on this ride and not think too much.
Which is fine. And I guess in that regard, did the movie satisfy? I guess. It's kind of a dumb ride. It's a bit big and dumb. I mean, it's not that big, but it's, again, like it's trying to be headier than it is. He's the son of the devil, and I prayed to the devil, and the devil gave me a baby. It's like, all right, like it's pretty big ramifications if you could just pray to the devil and the devil could intercede on your behalf. If that's an actual thing, I don't know why anybody still believes the goddamn devil in 15 or 2019. But after the fact, I guess praying is better than just not making a deal with the devil to begin with.
I mean, she got what she wanted, which is a child. It's just not in the manner that, she was deceived and now she has to deal with that. But to your point, and this is why I was kind of speaking more in positive terms about the movie at the beginning, which is, if you go in and you don't expect too much out of this movie, if you just want to just turn off your brain for a while and just catch a movie, I don't think, I'm not going to say you won't be disappointed because we both clearly were, but, it's not the resounding failure. Again, damning with faint praise. It's not a resounding failure. There's the framework of a really good movie here, and the pieces, the components are there. It really fell apart at the end. But having said that, if you don't care about, if you want to dig too deep and you just see this movie and kind of, zone out and just enjoy it for what it is, more power to you. I think that's great. You know what I mean? I couldn't.
More power to you.
Right. That's
more power to you if you like this shit.
That's the blurb on the movie poster. If you want to turn off your brain and watch this, more power to you. No, it's fine. It's better. It's a better than average, riff on the haunted house kind of ghost story, but the twist totally submarines it. And it's a shame because it could have. I think you and I agree that there's. If the filmmakers cared more about the implications of the ending, I think it could have been a much better movie, but I don't think they really cared. So it is what it is.
I think they wanted to get to that twist as badly as they humanly could and as quickly as they humanly could. And I think this movie's an hour and a half. I think you could have almost gotten away with a longer movie with a little bit more of the third act or a little bit more of peppering in of what the twist is, or maybe drip feeding us some more information a little bit more. Movie doesn't do that. Movie is very stingy with that, which is fine. That's another thing with these twist movies, being stingy with stuff to the point of it's two characters are standing in a hallway talking. They might be talking about something that one of the other characters doesn't know, even though you think they know everything, which this movie even does that. So
right.
The twist just kind of pulls this movie's pants down and exposes it for the whole world to see. And, I think like you said, your mileage is going to vary from the twist on. And I think that movie knows it. I think the movie knows that that's going to be the case, which is why they kind of just went full bombastic, insane twist ending, as opposed to I don't know, something a little bit more reined in and less son of the devil, turning people into the cross of St. Peter and burning them alive.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, look,
the best part of the movie, though, to be fair, that is the best part of the movie. That scene.
No, like I said,
so fucking insane.
It's crazy. And the stuff with the nuns it's insane because it's so incidental to what the character's having a conversation, but this is still happening all around them.
Yeah.
And it's not the focus of the director. You just see these nuns kind of sailing around, moaning as they're being contorted in all these weird ways. And then they burst into flame. And it's, I guess, whoever did the effects, I didn't research that part of it, but I can't find fault in the effects because they're modest and they work. And maybe that's what we were looking for. Maybe something a little more modest and maybe a little more grounded. But at the same time, at the risk of sounding like a hypocrite, I can't necessarily fault them for shooting for the fences because that can work and that can be a talking point for this movie. I could see that being a word of mouth thing that they were banking on. But I just wish they had more respect for the audience watching the movie and I don't know. It just felt like you said, they didn't respect our intelligence enough to really go into it with a little more clarity, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And, again, we talked about this being a Netflix movie and does it cost anything to watch it? And no, it costs nothing. If you have Netflix, you can pop this on right now, And you know what? It's spooky season, so sure, why not? You could like HP said, you could do worse. And there are worse movies on that. There are worse movies on Netflix. This is more interesting than either of the movies I've watched so far.
So can I ask, because I came into this not knowing what the programming was centered around. What are the other movies you've seen so far in this same genre?
The Perfection and The Woman in the Window.
Okay. The Perfection I'm somewhat familiar with. Isn't it kind of like their twist on like a Chan Wook Park kind of movie where it's very not Old Boy, but something along those lines, which is a little bit hyper violent.
Yeah. Now that you say that, I kind of am surprised that neither Richard nor I mentioned the overt South Korean influences, but it's okay. And then Woman in the Window is, it's one of those, is it in her head or is it all happening in reality movies? And it's not.
Oh, I'm looking at that. I have some vague memory of this movie, but it was no good. You didn't like it?
So it was okay. It was just like this movie. It was okay. Like, here's the thing. Never going to watch it again, but I watched it once, which I'm sure that's all Netflix needed out of me anyways. You know what I mean? Like one watch is all they're really asking for. Did my account check the box of you've seen Eli now, you've seen Woman in the Window. You know what I mean? Like they at one point, a Netflix movie meant something. Now it's like, it's a fucking Netflix movie. It means something different now. Used to mean it was kind of a thing, like, oh, a Netflix movie. Now it's like, oh, it's a thing on Netflix. Like, whatever. We'll watch it if we want to. And if not, there will be 8 million other things that come out that same year, that have come out since, that will continue to come out this week, next week, and every week after for the 52 calendar month or 52 calendar week, because that's Netflix, just like Disney Plus, just like HBO Max. There's always got to be something new coming out. Netflix just happens to have the market cornered on really providing more than just TV shows and documentaries. They pump out a fair amount of movies. So now I get to ask you a question, since it is spooky and I have never had you on my show before. And you mentioned you're not that big of a horror fan. Do you have any horror movies that you do like?
I do, actually.
And Near Dark, which I know is also a favorite of Father Malone and myself.
He, all credit to him. He's really, in high school is when, we would hang out, and he had a huge, these are VHS tapes. He had a big library of movies, and I remember him letting me borrow Near Dark with the statement that, this is what Lost Boys wanted to be. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, now, having said that,
I mean, it's less mainstream Lost Boys. That's for sure.
Yeah. Understand also, these are the words of a, 16, 17-year-old kid who is, fancying themselves like, I'm sure maybe now with all these years later, I'm not sure if Father Malone would have exactly the same opinion. Maybe he would, but my
sounds
point
like
is
something he would say, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it was.
And he did.
But having said that, I know that he has a lot of love for Lost Boys. So, take that for what it's worth. But my point is, my formative kind of horror education a lot of it was driven by Father Malone. So my favorites, I would say Near Dark is definitely one of them. Creepshow is another one, just because, and that kind of predates Father Malone. That one, because I love EC Comics, and I thought that was just such a wonderful sort of tribute to it. For a movie that it's hard to say I enjoyed this movie, but I thought it was one of the best horror movies that I've ever seen. But having said that, I never want to see it again. I'd probably point to Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. That was probably like the most horrifying movie I had seen up to that point, and it stuck with me. You've seen it, I take it.
It is one of the few movies I have no interest in rewatching.
Yeah, I'm the same way, but I have to tip my cap to that movie, because it it's easy to see a movie like, your average vampire movie or whatever, but like the tone of that movie and just the horror within it, and how, I remember the tagline was, he's not Freddy, he's not Jason, he's real. And that, when I think of that movie still, and I think of, I remember I saw it at a local movie house and it was a midnight movie, and I was in high school, and I remember going to it, and there are people in the theater laughing at everything that's happening. And yes, there's black comedy in that movie, but boy, that's a horrible, I mean, Michael Rooker in that, if I ever met Michael Rooker, I would have to like shake like off the notion that this is not Henry that's in front of me, because he was so indelible in that movie and so real. Yeah, I would say if you want to say a favorite movie is a horror movie that's affected me, that I thought was truly scary, it would be Henry for sure.
That's a hell of a pick. That is a movie that I have only seen once. I kind of want to rewatch it just because, again, like now with the kind of the true crime movement and the things that like exist now in the world that I've seen, like I'm sure it's not probably as bad as I remember, but I remember writing a review for the website back in the days of the website before the podcast was just the podcast. I think my review was like, fuck this movie, something to that effect. Because it's one of those few and far between rare films that just captures exactly what it's trying to capture way too good, way too successfully, way too convincingly, like you've said.
That's the thing.
There's no fucking effects or demons or people floating upside down in that movie. It's 3 actors for like an hour and a half in a car and in motels. That's all it is. Yeah.
But it is shot in such a matter of fact, and kind of everything looks sort of dingy and gross and cheap. And it was heavy at the time because it was one of those movies that was kind of kicked off this idea of NC-17. And I remember that was a movie that was rated, it was going to be rated X, I believe, not because of the violence necessarily, but because of the tone of the movie. The movie was so unrelentingly bleak and grim and horrific that that's all it took for them to try and slap an X rating on it. But having said that, as a teenager, as a kid, as a, somebody who was just developing an interest in movies, that was appealing to me. Like, I have to see this movie that is causing all of this controversy. What's it all about? And I think I've seen it probably twice, and that's probably enough for me. I know, and unfortunately, I don't know if you knew this, they made a sequel, but none of the original actors or anybody are in it. It's terrible.
I'm not sure I want a sequel to that movie to begin with.
You're right. I guess it was a cult hit, so why not try to capitalize on that? I'm not saying I would do that. I'm saying I could see some opportunistic filmmaker saying, yeah, I'll have this stupid serial killer movie. I'll slap Henry as a title onto it and maybe get a few more people watching it. But what let me ask you, what about your favorite horror movies?
It's funny. My wife and I were just last 2 nights, we were at a cabin that had a giant 72-inch TV in it, as you do, apparently.
As cabins do.
It does.
Sure.
It had a stove, and it was one of those like prefab cabins that they just kind of like placed in place and then, made it look nice around it, but like they're pre-built type thing. But it had a giant TV, and so I hooked my laptop into it, and we just had a horror movies running for the last 2 days while we were hanging out in this cabin in the woods. And, I was thinking about it because a lot of the movies that we watched were things that I've seen a million times, or things that I really like, or things that I had wanted to see. And it got me thinking, like, what are the movies that I like in the horror genre? And it's funny, like, I like most everything. I think the hard thing for me is convincing me to watch it, because at this point anymore, I really needs to really do something interesting, because I feel like I just have seen everything at this point with a lot of this stuff. Like something like Eli is like, okay, so it's like a mix of all these kinds of things I've seen before done better by somebody else. I'd rather just be watching The Exorcist, which is one of my favorite movies, like horror movies. But to call The Exorcist a horror movie is to almost undersell what it actually is. Yeah,
absolutely. It's classic.
Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream. Those are the big ones for me. Like, and those are big ones anyways. I have movies that I personally like Return of the Living Dead is my favorite zombie movie. Sure that would be echoed by
Father Malone as well.
It would be echoed by Father Malone also.
Oh yeah.
Because him and I are students of the Church of Dan O'Bannon, but in a lot of ways, like I love I love the horror genre. It's a genre that I came to very late. But for me, it's like the ones that I remember watching early on were like Scream and Nightmare. And then like new stuff. Like I'm a huge fan of the original Psycho. You know, again, like talk about that movie and say it's good is like saying, you know, Hitchcock movies are good, dipshit.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
well,
like
water is wet.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Like, I think my issue with horror movies is just I like when somebody does something interesting, and that's very few and far between anymore. But I'm game to watch anything, really. Like, you know, God. Even stuff Eli.
Well, I will even like, if we're talking, I mean, I am of a similar mind to you, which is I will, you know, it's, yes, I mean, Henry was probably one of the ones that stuck with me the longest, but if I really thought about it, like I remember going to see the Blair Witch Project with Father Malone, in fact. And this was right. I mean, it's hard. It's almost impossible to grasp what a sensation it was in its day when it first came out, because there was a period when, I mean, I think anyone rational would have understood that like, these people didn't really die in the woods of, you know, but you know, it was it was so masterful. The ad campaign was so masterful, and there was so little known the movie itself that I remember going to see it, and we had to go to an art house to see it, or, you know, not your usual Cineplex. And I remember driving home after we both saw it, and we were kind of like knocked out by it. And because there was, you know, found footage, although it was around, it predates Blair Witch. It wasn't, this was such a, like I said, such a sensation. And I remember driving home, and it was like very foggy and misty out. And it just kind of stuck with me. And I was like, wow, I can't shake this feeling of unease after being in the woods with these terrified filmmakers. That to me is a successful horror movie. I hadn't seen anything quite like it. It was, you know, made in such a unique and fascinating way. And it was believable. You know, now, I mean, maybe it's a little, I don't know, it's been kind of undercut by everything that came after it, but it was still, I would still count that as a top horror experience of mine. Let me ask another question to you. What would be a horror movie that you could recommend that you don't think the casual horror fan like me would seek out? Like, what's something that's a little off the beaten path that you would recommend?
Well, let me just look at my Plex real quick.
Sure. Oh, I use Plex too. Isn't it awesome?
Yeah. I don't know how I made it through most of college without it. I actually, because I think it would have, well, it probably wasn't around in 2008. Okay. So a movie I would definitely suggest is Digging Up the Marrow. Speaking of found footage, it is a found footage I hate the term mockumentary, but found footage, fake pseudo documentary about a filmmaker who made the Hatchet films, going out and playing himself, interacting with a guy, a monster hunter played by Ray Wise, who is trying to show him proof of a subterranean world beneath ours called the Marrow, where people who are different, take that however you will, live and colonize. And it's weird and kind of, it's not very scary, but it's weird. It's just kind of strange. Another good one, WNUF Halloween Special. It's again found footage recording of a fake 1980s sometime a Halloween special from like a local news station. And during the Halloween special, they go into this supposedly haunted house and do a seance. And I will not say more than that. But it's also, again, very weird, very tonally strange, kind of not your usual genre fare. I mean, like you said, you're asking for things that most people are never going to come across or are going to have to go out of their way to come across. Another thing that I would mention is a movie called Office Killer. Speaking of kind of true crime, it's a movie where Carol Kane plays a killer copy editor.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's from like the early 2000s, but it's interesting in kind of the post true crime wave that we've ridden now, kind of to see where that movie ends up. And you know what? I'm actually going to mention as my final thing, and you're going to love this. And if Father Malone is listening, he's really going to love this.
Yeah.
I actually kind of sort of really like that Rob Zombie Monsters movie.
Really?
I kind of liked it, and I kind of have no problem admitting it because it was fucking weird. Everybody committed 100%, which I think is the only way that that's ever going to succeed. And it's telling a story that's like, they've never told the story of how the Munsters met, at least best I can tell. So, okay. And, if Rob Zombie makes 2 or 3 more Munsters movies, I would watch that. I don't think he necessarily will, but Daniel Roebuck as Grandpa is great. Jeff Daniel Phillips is kind of works as Herman Munster. And I hate to say this, but I did not find Sherry Moon Zombie nearly as obnoxious as I have found her in every other thing she's ever been in that Rob Zombie has ever directed, which has been pretty much up until this point, everything he's directed, she's in some form or fashion.
Interesting. We
critically reviled Monsters.
And Father Malone and I have had a few words about it. I haven't seen it yet, but I kind of want to give it a chance. One movie that you're reminding me of, I haven't seen this movie in years, but I'm wondering if you saw it. I think we're off topic a bit, but I like hearing these recommendations. You ever see a movie called Behind the Mask? The Rise of Leslie Vernon. Yeah.
The good one.
Well,
that movie is very similar to Digging Up the Marrow.
That's what made me think of it.
Like even tonally.
Yeah. I saw that when it came out. Like I got it on DVD. I didn't see it in the movies. And I was like, wow, this is actually really kind of a clever spin, because I just like the idea that like in this reality, like these killers are actually like real.
Right.
And it's about this guy who kind of looks up to them and wants to, and then every time they go to an actual like killing, it goes, I think it's like, 4:3, like aspect ratio.
Yeah.
And then it goes into widescreen when it's actually showing these killings. I thought that was really brilliant.
It's an interesting movie. Another one, Hell House LLC. It's a found footage movie about a group of people who are setting up a haunted house, kind of like in upstate New York, and things go awry. Ghost Watch, another found footage thing, but it's like it was shown on the BBC, and it was kind of their War of the Worlds broadcast.
Oh, everybody thought it was real?
Yeah, because it's done so well. So, I mean, those would be some suggestions for me. I mean, again, like, I'm with you. Like, I love the horror genre, but I also like when somebody does something very weird and different and subversive with it. So I'm always game to watch something weird. You want to watch something that'll really, the closest comparison I have is to Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer is the Poughkeepsie tapes.
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's pretty much just Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer from the other side of the coin.
It is not my only criticism. I think it was, two things. I wanted to like it more than I did, because I love the idea that like the cops find this like trove of videos that this killer has been taking for all these years. But 2 things kind of took me out of it. One was the acting, I think, is really bad in it. Like they have all these talking heads that are supposed to be FBI agents and all these people commenting on the brilliance of this guy. And if I didn't like, for something like to work, I want to be able to put it on for somebody and have them believe, okay, this is a real interview with an FBI guy. But It was so clear that these were just bad actors. The other thing of it that pulled me out, and this is my own personal thing, is that the killer in that movie was so like supernaturally brilliant, and like almost like he's like at one point he knows that there's a camera watching him, so he like does sign language to convey like find them here or go here. I'm like,
before he killed them,
right?
Yeah,
but there was some really, knowing a little bit about true crime, like I appreciated that like they kind of pulled from a lot of like famous killers' MOs, which I thought was pretty interesting. But again, the acting and the fact that like I eventually could not, like I said, the fact that he was like so preternaturally like ahead of everybody and like just so brilliant and diabolical was a little bit a bridge too far for me. But you're right, though. It was there's a lot of horrific things that happen in that movie, and arguably it's, you could believe it's, I mean, this stuff can and does happen, right? We just don't hear about it. Like, there's this thing about this guy where was it? In Kansas City. Have you heard about this?
Which one?
So this woman, this African-American woman, like, breaks out of this guy's house and goes like down the street. She's emaciated. She has like duct tape on her and she's been restrained. She breaks out of this guy's house. Basically, he's been keeping her in his basement and like abusing her. And she finally escapes and gets help. And she says, like, my friends didn't make it. Now, the horrifying, that's horrifying enough. But the cops have been told there are women, African-American women, going missing from this block in Kansas City, but they didn't investigate it. They basically just said all reports of missing people have been unfounded. They probably could have saved somebody, at least one person, if they had just taken these. It's like the Jeffrey Dahmer thing where the guy escapes and the cops think it's a lover's quarrel. So they bring the guy back to the house where he's been, savaged within an inch of his life. That is horror to me, but it happens. And that's why, like, I guess the Poughkeepsie tapes, could be somewhat believable because maybe somebody would do that. But the execution fell apart a little bit for me with that. But I love the idea.
I'm with you. And so that would be, I mean, for me, again, it's like, I don't, to bring it all the way back, I would not go to Netflix to watch horror movies, new horror movies. I would be going to Netflix to watch the things that I've seen a million times before, but they just happen to have it on Netflix. Like, I'm not going to Netflix to look for horror movies like Eli, like the new stuff, because again, my normal perception is they're more kind of in line with The Perfection and The Woman in the Window, where they feel the same, they look the same, the production values are the same. This movie has its own look and feel. It's not just another Netflix movie, but at the same time, it kind of has those same problematic things that make these Netflix movies, at least these horror movies. I don't watch honest to God serious stuff on Netflix. Like, there's plenty, I'm sure, of like plenty serious dramas on Netflix that are very unique and fun and not demonic devil kids. So, but all these Netflix horror movies all kind of feel very samey. So speaking, I would
agree with that. Yeah.
So speaking of that, we'll take. No, you're good. We'll take a break and we'll play a preview for the next Netflix horror movie.
Hey.
Hey.
I think I found the perfect house for us.
You thought this through? George really wants this. I owe it to him to at least try.
When I saw this place, I knew immediately it was for us.
There's definitely updating that needs to be done here.
Yeah, certainly could use a paint job.
Yeah, but look at these bones.
I love it so much.
You're an exceptional husband.
And you are an exceptional wife.
I'm new in town and I would love to learn more about the older homes in the area. I don't know anybody up here.
Well, you do now.
My wife doesn't know what happened here. I think it would be better if we kept it that way.
Everything in the natural world has a counterpart in the spiritual realm.
We're all so inconsequential.
I'd say death is only the beginning.
My wife is the true believer of the family. You do not want to get us started on all that stuff.
What the?
I'm starting to see things. And I'm scared to tell George about it. If you're coming in, shut the door behind you. What do you want?
I told George the whole story.
I need to know what happened.
Somebody help us!
something wrong, Kath?
So in the next episode of the Kulturecast, we're going to be talking about Things Heard and Seen, another Netflix horror movie. Don't even know. I'm not even letting myself know what they're about before I watch them, because at this point, like, anything could give them away. You know, like if I had even perused the fucking page for this movie by accident, I would have had the demonic part ruined for me. Because on Wikipedia, they say exactly who he is. It's like, Charlie Shotwell is playing Eli, the half-demon son of the devil. And it's like, whoa, fuck, move. Like, fucking Wikipedia.
Yikes.
Ruining the movie outright. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, like, that's a little much. For me, at least, as someone who doesn't want to have the movie ruined for me if I'm just looking up information about it. So, and I'm going to be joined by Heather Drain on that episode. So until then, HP, when you're not here with me, like you already told the listeners once, but tell them once again, where can people find you?
You can find me. I am one half of the hosting duo of Wolf and Raisin, the Banachek podcast. And I'm also one half with the same co-host, Father Malone, of the Goodnight, Mr. Walters, a taxi podcast. You can find me there.
And as for me, you can find me at weirdingwaymedia.com. That's where those two shows that he mentioned, along with everything else I work on, are. Yeah, you can find it there. For me, cstachiw.com. That's my link tree. Go there for the things that I work on, which are various and varied. As for this show, culturecast.com, patreon.com. You've heard it all before. I'm telling it to you again. One more time. I promise I won't do it again. Just kidding. You're going to hear it again next episode. But you know where to go if you want to do those things. Like, subscribe, rate, and review. All the things you can do that cost nothing, you should do those if you don't want to spend any money. HP, thank you for joining me. This is fun. First time without Father Malone here.
It was a lot of fun. My pleasure. Anytime, Chris.
And we'll catch you on the next episode.